Good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear my voice, I am about to feed the penguins inside the June Keys penguin habitat. It's going to take about 10 minutes, so if that's something you want to see, come on over to the exhibit. I'm about to enter and sit down and feed our birds. It's a little hard to multitask and feed and talk on the microphone, but if you want to know what I'm doing, I'm offering our birds two types of fish, either herring or capelin. And I'm noticing that our birds are getting pretty hungry. Usually this feed, the second feed of the day, the one I'm doing right now, isn't the most popular feed for the birds. It's usually the third feed, but it looks like I had some birds waiting at the door. So we'll see who wants to eat. Everybody has had at least one fish today. That's what this handy chart tells me. Lets me know what birds what. Although I do work with these guys 5 days a week, so I can tell them apart more so by personality rather than the colored bead bands that they have. So give me a chance to get these guys fed, and once I've gotten a good start on that, I will go ahead and talk to you again. But the largest fish I feed, that's a herring. That's what Floyd just ate right now. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that Floyd got a herring and that Gats also got a herring. But you can see where this can get kind of challenging. So if you can hear my voice, definitely come on over here. Get a chance to see these birds eating. We currently have 20 on exhibit. And I will talk a little bit after the feed, but I can see I have some hungry birds. In fact, I'm going to see if Shim will eat and let me talk on the mic. Almost. That fish actually went to Admiral Fancy Pants. Our birds have some pretty unique names out here. So again, if you want to see our birds get fed, happening right now, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about their natural history. All right, I'm still feeding these guys, but I can start to talk to you guys a little bit about how this feed is going. So I have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 out of the 20 birds to eat some food. And that's pretty typical for a second feed. But I'm noticing the birds that are eating, they're eating a lot more than they typically do. This is actually an interesting time of year for our birds. They get ready to go through something called a catastrophic molt. So if you ever visited us before and you heard about our chick named Gats, he hatched this past year, or last year, I mean. He's right up here with his flippers out like that. He looks like an adult now. He didn't look like that about a month ago. About a month ago, he was gray and white and a little bit more muted. He had his subadult or juvenile plumage, and chicks keep that plumage for about a year. So our 3 chicks that are currently behind the scenes look like Gats did about a month ago. And now those 3 chicks will keep that juvenile plumage for about a year. But this is a really gnarly process for these birds. In fact, all penguins go through it. If you Google image catastrophic molt penguin, you will get some very funny pictures. But these birds naturally have to go through this process because their feather structure is what keeps them dry in the water. So because of that, their feathers get pretty worn throughout the year, especially when you're a Magellanic penguin like these birds are. They can actually migrate up to 3,000 miles a year. And while they don't swim that far here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, their feathers do get pretty worn, including this bird I'm feeding right now. His name is Floyd. He's actually had 7 chicks here at the aquarium with his mate Roxy. They do mate for life, if you are curious. But that feather structure is what gives those birds that watertight seal on their plumage or feathers. So they have to spend quite a while, in fact, about 3 hours a day taking care of their feathers on a normal basis, just to make sure they're in good shape. But during this time of the year, it almost looks like they have hairspray feathers. There's a lot of kind of gaps in between their feathers, and they get kind of hard because they stop preening them. So they actually have what's called a preen gland, uropygial gland, and that gland helps secrete oil that they can condition all over their body. But remember, that feather structure itself, that's what's keeping them dry in the water. So they bulk up ahead of time. About 2 months prior to this, they can eat up to half of their body weight in food, which is what Whatever seems to be doing right now. That's the bird I'm feeding. That is her name. Her name is Whatever. And with the fish she just ate, she has had 28 capelin. So she'll probably eat about 35 today. That's what she's been eating. But these are capelin, a little bit smaller than herring. And she won't eat herring. She only eats capelin. She's one of our more, not picky eaters, but she knows her preference. So you might see her throw about 5 of these out and eat maybe 1. There she goes. She got another one. Everybody has a little bit of a different way that they like their fish served to them. And it's very interesting because birds act different for different keepers. So Shim will eat herring or capelin from me, but he'll only eat herring from other keepers. We've had 13 chicks hatch here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. We were lucky enough to have 3 hatch this past season. And they're not quite ready to go on exhibit with all of the adults yet. So in a few more weeks, they will be ready. We're going to start introducing them to the other penguins. The penguins you see right now, they'll spend some time behind the scenes. There's a holding pool back there, so they're swimming right now, having a good time. By the way, they got to eat before the adults did, so they're not hungry by any means at all. But if you're just joining us, I'm finishing up a penguin feed. These guys have almost cleaned out my bucket, which they don't usually do at the second feed. But since they're getting ready for that molt, everybody has a pretty good diet right now. Now, after our molting season, it's going to be migration time. So these birds are going to spend a lot more time in the water, and they're going to be a lot more sensitive to loud sounds. Good example of that is I was feeding them during a migration time and I sneezed, and that scared all the birds in the water. If I were to do that right now, nobody would move at all. But their behavior does change from season to season. So we finished up our breeding season. We went into molt time, so that's where we're at right now. There's a bird on deck. I'm going to point him out because Mr. Robbie here likes to get his fish thrown to him with his feet in the water. That's just what he prefers. But I'm going to use this herring here to point out a stare. That's a stare. A stare is getting ready to molt. He's actually what I call pre-molt. Can't just point a herring at him. Now I have to try to offer that to him too. Nope, he doesn't want it. But take a look at him compared to all the other birds around him. His flippers are very swollen. He's pretty much engorged with blood right now, getting ready for those blood vessels to pop out the old feather so that new feather can grow in. It can be a pretty stressful time for our birds, so it's when I always keep a close eye on these guys. I'm in the husbandry department, fancy word for animal health care. I'm actually the lead keeper for these guys, so I work with them 5 days a week. So if anybody looks like they're doing something weird or they're not eating, I can go ahead and let the vet staff know. The vet staff can come up here, draw blood. We might just do some observations. It depends on the behavior of the bird. So for an example, Robbie likes to eat with his feet in the water. A few weeks ago, he decided, I'm not hungry. Kind of weird because they're supposed to be bulking up for their molt. So we took some blood for him. Everything was normal. We gave him a little bit of subcutaneous fluids, kind of like when we have a cold, if you drink your fluids, that kind of snaps you back into it and you get your appetite back. Same thing for them, and now he's bulking up like a good boy. So part of the thing with these guys is that birds really hide their illnesses. They're really good at that. They don't want you to know that they don't feel well, especially when you're a prey species like these guys are. So if anything is out of the ordinary, that's going to give me a clue as to what's going on. Just like if you guys have pets at home and your pet doesn't come home, or when you come home, doesn't jump up on you or act excited, just kind of hangs out in the corner. Now with a stare, this is normal behavior for a bird that's under pre-molt. So I noticed today his flippers looked really swollen, and he just looks really big, especially if you compare him to Floyd standing here. So I'm going to expect him to act like that. I might give him some ice, make him more comfortable. I'll let the vet staff know he's going through a molt. And then if he goes a day or two without eating, we can go ahead and take it from there. It's one of the main reasons we have this feed chart here and we hand feed the birds. That way we keep a very close eye on them. And 4 of our birds were actually rescued from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So because of that, they were deemed unreleasable. That means they couldn't go back to their natural habitat. So we were able to give them a permanent home here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And since their immune systems can be a little bit more compromised than some of the birds hatched here at the aquarium, we just kind of give them an extra time for observation. So like what Robbie, totally wanting to eat with his feet in the water. Normal. Not doing that, kind of strange. But every now and then, these guys do have off days, just like you and I do. So they all have a record system. So all those bead bands that you see, that's all a number, and that number goes into the records, and I can say what's going on with our birds. 3 days a week, we offer penguin encounters, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I even put that in their records. Enrichment. For them and the people that do the encounter. So if a stare does an encounter, I'll say how many fish he ate, what he did for the day, and his behavior. But right now in his records, I'm saying pre-molt, and to not use him for any events because he has to get through that molt. In fact, we've only had 1 bird go through their molt, so we have to go through all of the other birds. They go from youngest to oldest. So there'll be a pretty exciting time for them, and then they'll all have a brand new set of feathers, and then they'll start their yearly migration. I'll be back out here feeding our birds at 4 o'clock if you want to see them get their dinner. But until then, I'm going to let them have some time to hang out on the beach. This is their habitat. They are totally comfortable in here. We've had 6 breeding seasons on exhibit and have had 13 chicks hatch here. So if these birds weren't happy, they wouldn't be laying eggs and raising babies. By the way, this is Admiral Fancy Pants. He has the best penguin name. Well, they all do, but his is funny. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. We are a nonprofit institution, so your paid admission is going right back to these birds, whether it's to give them their restaurant quality sustainable seafood or vet care. I want to thank you guys for supporting us and enjoy the rest of your day here at the aquarium. Again, if you want to see these guys get fed again, it will happen at 4. It's pretty exciting to watch, and everybody has had at least 2 fish now. Thank you guys so much.